Living life while traveling the world and working for yourselves comes with so many positives. It really looks like a dream, but it also comes with a ton of negatives that most people don't often think about. I've been working for myself and working remotely for over 6 years now. So in this video, I want to share some of the most valuable lessons I've learned. I've also got let's call it a pro tip about what it really means to be a digital nomad and how to go about it, which I'll probably save for the end. First lesson is that you need a lot of discipline. Being a digital nomad, you're working for yourself. You get to travel the world and see all these beautiful destinations week after week. Most people start being digital nomads because of the flexibility and the freedom it affords you. At least that's why I got into it, right? I really wanted to live life on my own terms. And so for me, that means working whenever I want, however I want, and also wherever I want. Don't get me wrong, this is absolutely amazing and I love every single day of it. I'm recording this video from an Airbnb in Japan, for example. But it also comes with some downsides. Since you're working for yourself from random places in the world, there's also no one else to actually motivate you to do the work and to force you to actually do something. Especially in the first few months when you become a digital nomad, you're very excited. Everything is beautiful, everything is new, and so your productivity might take a big hit. It's really hard to stick to an actual routine, to stay productive, and to actually have working hours, especially at the beginning. This is something that you really have to work on. You really have to bring a lot of discipline into your life and do a lot of self-management because no one else will do it for you. This isn't really something that is unachievable, but it's really something that you have to keep in mind at all times and work towards. So if you want to be able to keep doing this digital nomad thing for a long time, I would strongly recommend that you create a routine for yourself and define clear working hours. That can be any time in the day. You might prefer to work a little bit in the morning or during the day, normal working hours, or in the evening, afternoon, or maybe you split it into two. You can kind of do whatever you want here. This is why we got into this, but you have to define them clearly. It is so easy to get distracted and go off adventuring instead of actually putting in the work that will help you keep your job or keep your business afloat. The second lesson is that maintaining friendships can be really hard. I was very excited at first, especially when I saw that I was building a really large global network. Let's say I know people all over the world and I have friends all over the world in almost any country I might visit, which is a great thing. So you get to meet a lot of different people. But it's also really hard to keep and maintain those friendships. This might be easier for some people, but it's personally not that easy for me. I'm not that good with all this socializing thing and maintaining the friendships. Although I know a lot of people all over the world and I get to meet people very easily, actually maintaining those relationships over time to a point where I can actually call these people friends for real is actually really hard, at least for me. You meet locals, you meet other people who are digital nomads as well, who are looking for connections, and those connections can be really strong. But it also comes with this thing like, you know, it's limited in time because you're only there for a couple weeks, a couple months at most, and so you're going to go off at some point. So you might spend a lot of time with those people all at once and then you go away. And once you're away, it's really hard to keep that relationship going. And on the other side, you also have all the other people you might know in your life which are not traveling. Think of your friends from home, for example. At some point, you kind of start really disconnecting from the life you had previously and the people you knew previously. It's still, of course, great to come back and be friends, but you have such a different life. It makes it really hard to still connect and still relate to whatever people at home might be going through, and also for them to relate to you. So your main challenge while you're traveling is probably to avoid loneliness. The third lesson is about having a place you can call home. When I started traveling, I was super excited to actually not have a home. It sounds really cool, right? It's something I even joke about it still today. It's saying like, I'm just a homeless person traveling the world, right? And so it is a cool thing that you can say to people. But it is true that it starts becoming exhausting after a little while. And this is something you have to prepare for. By not having a home, I don't mean that you don't have a place to sleep at night, that you don't have an accommodation that might be comfortable. This applies to anyone traveling the world. It doesn't really matter how you're doing it, if you're living off of your backpack camping or living in luxury villas. I've done both, and the result is pretty much always the same, is that no matter where you are, no matter how comfortable it is, it's not really your home, right? You're living in somebody else's place. This hasn't really been a problem for me for a very long time, to be honest. I still love it, but I have to admit that it can be a little bit exhausting over time. Some people start feeling this after weeks of traveling, while some others start feeling it only after years or maybe never. So if that's you, congrats. The part I really wanted to talk about when I say that you never have a real home is that you don't have a place that is yours for the long term, that you can decorate however you want, where you can just drop all your stuff, that you can just come back and just relax. When you're a digital nomad, you're always on a schedule. You know that you rented this place for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever the time may be, but there is a deadline to when you can stay here. This will 100% affect your life. When I'm staying in a place for, let's say, 2 weeks and I don't like the shower curtains, I'm not going to replace it. I just have to live with that. When I'm staying there for 6 months, maybe that's something I can invest in. It really depends. The last part is also that it makes it really hard to predict the future, because you know you're going to stay here for 3 months, but what after that? What are you going to be doing this summer? What are you going to be doing this winter? And so on one side, that flexibility is exciting. This is part of why I got into this. I really love that I don't necessarily know what I'm going to be doing next year, but it also makes it really hard to plan for things with friends, with family, and then back to point number 2, actually maintaining relationships or simply having that peace of mind. Lesson number 4 is about keeping your finances in check. This is something most digital nomads don't really want to talk about. If you're just doing some research or thinking about getting into it, you're probably watching a lot of videos about people living their best life in Japan, Korea, on the beach, working remotely, all those beautiful things, right? Traveling the world might be a little bit counterintuitive, but can be much, much cheaper than staying in one single place. Before I started traveling full time, I was living in Switzerland and then in Germany. Expensive places. Almost anywhere else on the planet is cheaper than living back home for me. I don't just mean the cost of life, but there's a lot of things that I don't have to pay for anymore. I don't pay for full rent anymore. I don't have to think about cleaning my house or many other things that come with that anymore. I don't pay for a car. I don't pay for public transport most of the time. And my phone bills and internet bills are either very low or almost non-existent as well. So traveling the world or living abroad is very often a very good way to save money or affording a better lifestyle. Your money goes much further. What you have to be careful about is that it's very, very easy to spend all that extra cash you might have into a lot of adventures, restaurants, cafes, food, parties, etc. Especially at the beginning, when you start traveling, everything is new, everything is exciting, your life is beautiful, and you're seeing the world with rose-tinted glasses. It's very, very easy to get distracted from your work, and it's even easier to spend money. Money goes away very, very fast. So please make sure to actually set a budget and stay within your budget. I personally find that it's even easier to spend way too much when I'm staying in places for very short periods of time. So anything under a month, for example, simply because I don't have a lot of time. I don't have time to stay home and cook when there's all these amazing restaurants in Paris I have to try. But let's come back to this a little bit later in the last pro tip at the end of the video. Point number 5 is that nothing is exciting anymore. When you're traveling the world and doing amazing things every day, you're seeing the most beautiful beaches every day, day after day. After a couple days, it's just a beach. Everything starts to kind of be the same, right? I've been traveling through Korea and Japan for the past 3 months, for example, and I think the main mistake I've made there is that I've been traveling too fast. And so I've been seeing a lot of beautiful sights, mountains, incredible cities, temples. When you're at your 8th temple, it's just a temple. I've been wanting to go there my whole life, but when I actually get there, it's like, oh, cool. Another temple. This is pretty sad. You don't get excited anymore. The more you travel, the more things you do and the more things you experience, the harder it gets to actually be excited about new things. Everything kind of melts together or blurs together, let's say, and it becomes all the same, right? All the beaches are the same, all the temples are the same, all major cities are the same. This takes me to the final pro tip I've promised, which is about staying for longer. Being a digital nomad doesn't necessarily mean that you have to travel all the time. It simply means that you have the flexibility to travel and do whatever you want. You don't have to visit 12 cities in 6 months. You can just visit 2 or 1. I know this sounds a lot less exciting on paper, but it really is the best tip I could give anyone wanting to be a digital nomad. By staying in places longer and traveling slower, you're giving yourself time to go much deeper into a destination and experience real life there. Living in Paris for 2 weeks is a completely different experience than living in Paris for 6 months or a year. By staying longer, you'll also be able to actually create a routine and bring a little bit more stability into your life. You'll actually get to know your local bakery. You'll get to know some favorite restaurants in your neighborhood, exploring different neighborhoods and seeing much more than just the surface. This will also help you avoid quite a lot of stress. Let's take the example of Paris again. If you're staying there for 6 months instead of 2 weeks, you don't have to do all the tourist things right away. You can spread them out over time. You can actually have the time you need to focus on your work, to focus on yourself, do the things you need to do, while also having the time to actually go out and sightsee and experience everything you had on your list about Paris. Again, I know this sounds a lot less exciting on paper, but it would allow you to actually keep being a digital nomad for years, so for much, much longer, instead of just burning out after a couple months. So if there's one lesson you take away from this video, is that being a digital nomad is absolutely amazing. In my opinion, it's the best lifestyle you could have. But give yourself time. Give yourself time to experience, to set up your life, and to explore. Alright, that's it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, please subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments, and especially drop any advice you might have for me or for other people traveling the world, questions as well, in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, and talk to you soon.